Moments ago, the Seminoles took the field here at Doak Campbell Stadium in front of a homecoming crowd, hoping to see this ball club remain undefeated. Osceola aboard Renegade. One of the great spectacles in college athletics. And actually, the use of the name Seminoles in this tradition is embraced by the Seminole Nation. Jimbo Fisher, his best season by far here. He is now 40-10. That's the best record in 4 years of any ACC coach ever. 80% is off the charts. Syracuse has won the toss. They have deferred. So the Seminoles will get it first. And here comes Osceola. That's just cool. There's no way around it.
Don't trip over the hoof marks if you're running by the 50.
Or anything else if you're running by the 50. Scott Schaefer is in his first year as the Orange head coach. He was Doug Marone's defensive coordinator as they revived this program that had really fallen on hard times. His D right now, Ed, is playing very, very well.
He replaced himself with Chuck Bulla, who he'd worked with at Western Michigan, and this defense with a good front four. Bromley in the middle is a very solid nose guard, but they have played so much better since the Georgia Tech game. They really played poorly against a team that runs an offense you very rarely see, but since then, this staff, and of course with the background on defensive Schaefer, they're very happy with the progress of this team.
Jameis Winston, how tough must it be to concentrate on football at this point? We'll see how well he does that this afternoon. Ryan Norton to kick it away. Kermit Whitfield is deep. He had a 97-yard kickoff return last week against Wake Forest and has run the third best 100 meters in the history of the 100 meters.
In high school track, it's pretty unbelievable. And they don't kick to him. Imagine that.
And the ball will be out of bounds inside the 25. Actually, a pretty good kickoff.
And a mistake by Carlos Williams. You let that ball go out of bounds. You get the ball on the 35-yard line instead of trying to tiptoe on the sidelines and get it at the 22.
Jameis Winston, 5th in the country in touchdown passes with 26. He's completing almost 70% of his passes. He is undefeated as a starter, and you hear the support from this overwhelmingly partisan Seminole crowd. Devontae Freeman is his running back. Give it off to Benjamin. The big wide receiver on the flanker around will be caught for a loss of a yard by Darrell Eskridge, who is a tremendous defensive back.
And Eskridge from the state of Florida, so kind of a big deal. He's been friends his entire life with Devontae Freeman, the running back for Florida State, since he was about 12 years old. So to come up and make a nice open field tackle. And here's a guy in Eskridge who talked about that defensive improvement as a first-year starter. The coach talked about his growth pattern, thinking he's going to be a top-level safety before his career is done.
James Wilders checks in as the tailback. Freeman goes to a wing, and they'll throw to him on the screen. Devontae Freeman with room to run. Couple of good blocks in front. Freeman still on his feet. Down to the Syracuse 42-yard line. Bobby Hart, the right tackle. Trey Jackson, the right guard. Downfield, they threw good blocks, and he used them beautiful.
And give Syracuse credit, because this ball was about to be a home run. Hart there going and blocking downfield on number 9, Rashard Anderson. Anderson actually does a fantastic job of retreating and ends up helping make the tackle. If he doesn't retreat properly, Freeman, who is excellent at reading his blocks, may have taken that to the house.
Freeman on the way to be the first 1,000-yard rusher for the Seminoles since Warwick Dunn. Pass complete to Kenny Shaw, who's averaging 22.8 yards a reception. There are some ludicrous numbers put up by this offense.
And they're going up against a Syracuse defense that has been playing very well lately. Now, of course, not to the level of competition of Florida State.
Well, they did not give up a touchdown in their last 2 games against Maryland and Wake Forest. Those offenses hardly the equal of this group for sure. Winston, nice catch by Shaw. Textbook technique, catching the ball with his hand.
And very accurate throw. The one thing when you study Jameis Winston time and time again is how accurate a thrower he is. Watch this ball. Snap a little off, got to move, good. He's just excellent at setting his feet. That ball thrown perfectly to Shaw, catches it right on the run.
And these receivers are so athletic and so good after the catch. If you hit them in stride, you have a chance to take it to the house every time. Same man, same kind of result, down to the 3. Kenny Shaw with his 3rd catch here early in the ball game.
And Florida State is just making the linebackers. That time, Dyshawn Davis had to come from all the way in the middle of the formation to come over to make that tackle. You continue to spread the field. I've always thought the ability to spread the field and get the ball out there quickly. You get a guy like Dyshawn Davis just coming back from a high ankle sprain to have to run that much. By the 3rd quarter, he's going to be tuckered out.
Chad Abram is in as the fullback, and they send in linebacker Jacoby McDaniel as an extra blocker, and it results in an FSU touchdown. Just the way they have done it all year. They take the opening possession, march right down the field. Aguayo is on for the point after. He's missed 1 field goal and no PATs this year. He is the leading scoring kicker in the country. Knocks that one through, and Florida State quickly on top. Jameis Winston 5 for 5 on the drive. They get the touchdown on the ground. The Seminoles take the opening kick, march right down the field, and take a 7-0 lead on Syracuse. Aguayo to kick it away. Gully and McFarland will be deep for the orange of Syracuse. Gully just coming back off of an injury. Kid's got quite a leg. Booms one. Ends up out of the end zone. Terrell Hunt has taken over as the Syracuse quarterback. With him as a starter, they've become more of a running team. They average better than 200 yards a game on the ground. And if there has been any kind of a weakness in that Seminole defense, it is against the rush, although they have gotten better since Boston College took it to them physically.
If you look at this Florida State defense, they don't really have a dominant interior defensive lineman. They're good and they can play, but this offensive line for Syracuse has started every game together. It's becoming a very solid group.
Jerome Smith on pace for 1,000 yards. Takes it off the left side, will get maybe 2, and that's it. Let's take a look at today's impact matchup brought to you by Chick-fil-A, Ed.
This entire game, in my opinion, comes down to whether the offensive line and the right side, Nick Robinson and Ivan Foy for Syracuse, can push around the defensive line for Florida State. Timmy Jernigan, the only guy who plays every snap, and Mario Edwards, who of course had a touchdown against Clemson on a fumble return and had a big interception last week against Wake Forest, becoming kind of the playmaker up there. But this is the whole ball game, in my opinion.
Second and long. They'll keep it on the ground, and they'll lose 3 or 4 yards. Crashing through was Christian Jones. If you have an identity as an offense, Florida State's going to pick that up and they're going to come with their best on defense, like the run blitz.
And there's the outside linebacker, Jones. He was kind of playing some middle, but somebody's got to stay home for him. Somebody's either got to come off of that, or the quarterback has to see that they're outnumbered to that side. That's a run, not a read option. There's no way that the quarterback would have given that ball. So the answer to that is let your quarterback actually read the option and keep the ball next time.
It's a danger zone for Terrell Hunt, who is completing less than 60% of his throws and has 7 interceptions, and he air mails that one out of bounds, intended for Chris Clark, and it's 3 and out.
And there was pressure right in the face.
It was really interesting talking to Jeremy Pruitt yesterday, I thought, Ed, when he took responsibility for the amount of yards that they gave up against Boston College. He said, we made assumptions, had some guys in the wrong places. He says, that's on me. Then we identified where they ought to be. We've been a lot better since.
He really thinks that that was a turning point. He felt like basically everybody on the defense, save for a few, made improvements in them, but they really have improved since that game in Boston.
Returnable line drive kick. Kenny Shaw. And he's not going to get anything out of it. Back to the 26 after a 52-yard blast. Darius Kelly made the tackle on special teams for Syracuse. 7-0 early, FSU.
ESPN College Football is presented by 5-Hour Energy. Try the new sour apple flavored extra strength 5-Hour Energy shots in the camouflage bottle.
Marshal of the parade, none other than former Seminole head coach Bobby Bowden. And that gentleman has been the Grand Marshal most of his life.
And he's back to celebrate the 20th anniversary of one of his greatest teams, the '93 National Championship game, with, in my opinion, still the best college quarterback maybe ever, Charlie Ward. That year was so cool to watch.
High praise. Whitfield still on his feet. Whitfield, holy cow, 74 yards. Kermit Whitfield is a decathlete. Didn't have to hurdle anything that time. Didn't have to do the long jump. All he had to do was show you his speed. And did he ever? That was spectacular.
Third fastest 100 meters in high school history. I think we just saw why he was recruited to Florida State.
I want to see the other two guys.
Here's the amazing thing in talking to Jimbo Fisher yesterday about Whitfield, and now they have him as a running back. He said, you know, as a 10-1 500-meter runner, you don't expect as much power as this smaller athlete has, but you saw there not much effort on the first tackle by Syracuse, but here's a guy that with that much speed can line up at running back and now adds just another layer of a weapon. But in talking to Jimbo Fisher, he said that 10-1 500 meters was the first race of his senior year in high school. He pulled his hamstring and never ran again. So he may have ended up being the fastest 100-meter runner in the history of high school had he not pulled his hamstring.
His hamstring is just fine now, thanks very much. Let's go to Janine.
Well, Mike and Ed, it was funny because when I asked Jimbo Fisher yesterday, give us a guy to watch for tomorrow. Here's a freshman, Whitfield, and the first thing Fisher says is that he's ridiculous with the ball in his hands. He's just got excellent ball skills, but guys, you can see his real asset. He does that with his feet.
I mean, that's scary when you see him in an open field, the way he just runs away from people.
You know, this is the second week in a row we've covered Florida State. The level of athlete that Jimbo Fisher is bringing in at every position. And Clemson's an awfully great program and what they're building there, but this is starting to feel like a top-level SEC school to me.
Low driving kick that will end up going out of the end zone, and Syracuse will take it out to the 25.
Well, watch at the end of this play, the hustle by Jameis Winston.
That's the
and you know what? That is a completely legal, incredibly, you have to be a gifted athlete. Dives, throws a forearm into the hip of the trailing cornerback, Julian Wiggum. That was a pretty good play by the quarterback to be that far downfield, and I think he could probably tease his teammate that he had to slow down and wait for him to go by to get that block.
Florida State has run 7 plays. They picked up 151 yards, and they have 2 touchdowns. Quarterback keeper off the left side, and all at once, the Seminole defense looks to be dominant as well. Christian Jones with the tackle there. Syracuse with negative yardage so far.
And this is for Florida State, the way they built this program, with Jeremy Pruitt coming in his first year as former defensive back coach at Alabama, and he replaced Mark Stoops, who went to Kentucky as the head coach. But they have been building and building, moving guys around, finding better positions for them, and they're really trending upward on defense at the end of this season.
Prince Tyson Gully is in as the running back. He's number 23. They throw it underneath to Jared West. He makes the catch and dives forward for a couple. It'll bring up 3rd and about 4, maybe 5.
And offensive coordinator George McDonald for Syracuse, and of course quarterback coach there is a guy named Tim Lester, who's a great college quarterback at Western Michigan. They talk about the process of their passing game. They're not where they were earlier in the year when Drew Allen, the transfer from Oklahoma, was the starter. But they decided, there's George McDonald there with in the middle, but they've decided to go as a run type of offense. So this, to me, is probably going to be some type of quarterback run.
Hunt throws in the flat. That's going to be enough for a first down. The tackle made by Ronald Darby on Jared West.
Was mentioning early, Jameis Winston has such great footwork. In studying Terrell Hunt, and I watched him in training camp and watched the film from last week's game, he really does have a nice transfer of weight. He's got a very short, compact throwing motion. He's been working on his accuracy, but this guy's just a sophomore. He's making his 7th start in college. It's a big reason, I think, that they decided to go with him. If they can continue to work with him, I think he has the base to become a much better thrower.
He does seem to have the inherent skills to lead you to believe he can be the face of this program at quarterback for the next couple of years. This carry will get maybe 1. Mario Edwards was the first man in on the tackle. Mario Edwards, the former USA Today Defensive Player of the Year, and they've got 2 of those guys on this team. The other one is their senior leader, LaMarcus Joyner. I mean, that's elite company.
Well, and they're playing at that level. You know,
yes.
When you talk to Jimbo Fisher, when you're at a gold standard program, which is what Florida State is, Alabama, USC, Ohio State, you're going to get the 5-star recruits. You have to be able to analyze those guys and say, can they really play? Do they want to learn? Do they want to get better? And I think that's where the focus comes in the process that they go through that has been so good.
Prince Tyson Gully trying to get outside. Run wide on Florida State at your own jeopardy because of that speed. Terrence Brooks, who's coming back this week from a concussion. And there is a Syracuse injury. And it's Prince Tyson Gully, young man who's coming back from an ankle injury. And hopefully he didn't tweak it.
Yeah, it looked to me like Terrence Brooks, as he was going down, landed on that left leg pretty hard.
When you look at Florida State's program, the quality of athletes they have, and as we watch the replay here,
see that left ankle,
yeah.
That's a bummer. And as you mentioned, Gully just coming back from that ankle sprain, missed the second half against Maryland.
But when you watch Florida State, you can obviously see the talent level they have and how well coached they are. You just get the feeling they are. Jimbo Fisher talks about the process. The process right now has taken them right to the top with a team like Alabama. And the process should be able to keep them at that point.
Here's the part that's amazing with Jimbo Fisher in this year. Last year, Florida State had more players drafted in the NFL draft than Florida State had ever had in their history.
Yes.
Think about that. Think about the history of this place, and yet they're better. And, oh, by the way, one of those guys was a first-round draft pick,
yes,
quarterback E.J. Manuel, and they're better. And a lot of it is the team chemistry, guys focus more. Remember that awful loss last year against NC State? That this team just doesn't have that personality at all.
The selfishness that used to be one of the things that critics talked about in this program, guys playing for themselves instead of the team, that selfishness is gone.
Now, it's a real bummer for Syracuse. Gully, a guy who has real top-end speed. Of course, had a huge bowl game last year against West Virginia. So they do have some depth. They have good power. in Jerome Smith, and we'll probably see George Morris, but that's a tough loss for Syracuse.
3rd and long for Hunt. Seminoles show blitz. Pass underneath, batted away, incomplete. It was intended for Ashton Broiled, who has really turned out to be their best receiver. Telvin Smith was there to knock it away. Broiled, a 6'2 sophomore. He has exceptional athletic ability.
Telvin Smith should be called for pass interference there. He doesn't have to turn and find the ball, but he reached out. He knocked the receiver's hands down. I thought real time it looked like PI. I think this should be first down Syracuse.
Dixon to punt to Kenny Shaw. Got away with a low line drive last time. This a much better kick, high end over end. Fair catch made at the 20. The Seminoles have wasted no time in scoring. 2 possessions, 2 touchdowns. Possession number 3 coming up. As we continue Dr. Pepper's road to the conference championship. Derek Brooks, one of the great linebackers in college and professional history, starred for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was brilliant for a long, long time. Winston, wide open, hits Whitfield, or excuse me, Benjamin.
Benjamin, a guy who, you know, Janine was talking a moment ago about Jimbo, talking about some of these young players. This guy, sophomore, 6'5", 234 pounds is Benjamin. The one thing you notice with Winston, too, in pressure, he never panics. There was a defensive lineman running by him, swatting at the ball, and Winston shuffled forward and made the play. Chuck Bulla, the defense coordinator for Syracuse, was so blown away by how good he is in the pocket.
Winston under pressure this time, steps up. Got away temporarily, makes a couple of guys miss, and turns an 8-yard loss into a 2-yard gain. Eric Kroom forced him out of the pocket, and the middle linebacker, Marquise Sproul, ended up making the tackle.
And Chuck Bulla, they want to bring some pressure against Winston, and the stats for Winston when you bring pressure this year, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country when extra blitzers are coming. But he said, I can't just let this guy, can't give 20-yard cushions, just sit there. He's accurate enough to pick us apart. Needs to get rid of that gold necklace, too. That's a danger.
Well, they have 27 sacks, which is tied for 14th in the country. Shaw makes a catch, got it up to midfield. There is a marker down, however.
I wasn't being facetious. Though wearing a necklace is very dangerous. You know, the horse collar, if that thing gets pulled
Absolutely.
when a guy goes reach for it, somebody should ask Jameis to take that off. Sometimes you forget when you're getting dressed, but that can be dangerous.
Choice is going to be, do you want 3rd and 1 or 2nd and 3?
2nd and 3 every time.
Offside. Defense number 13. Penalties accepted. 5 yards from the previous spot. We'll replay second
Of course,
down.
with this offense, it may be a technicality.
And Jameis Winston, just one of the better quarterbacks. And when pressured, he's the best in the country. Completion percentage, best yards per attempt. TDs to INT, best in the country. And it is all about his mechanics in the pocket. He does not get flustered. He stays balanced and ready to throw at all times.
Freeman, great cut. Devontae Freeman, first down at the 37-yard line. You know, there are a lot of people that are putting up QB, and under it says #1 in the country as well.
Freeman is, I've really, in the last couple of weeks, studying this young man. His ability to cut, he's got such good vision. He's got such good patience. I've really been impressed with this young man. He's, to me, the total package at running back.
Blitz coming. Freeman picks it up. Winston with time finds O'Leary in the flat. The big tight end shakes a tackler and bulls his way inside the 10. And in honor of Jack Nicklaus, we will not mention that he's his grandson.
Well, this is kind of a fun moment for Devontae Freeman. Watch who he picks up excellently on this blitz. Look at the finish on his pal Darrell Eskridge. Now give Eskridge credit for not quitting and going to make a hit, but those are two pals from the age of 12 years old going head-to-head, both of them giving nice effort there.
Freeman straight up the middle inside the 5. And Eskridge's family was in such horrible financial shape when he was growing up that he actually moved in with Devontae Freeman and lived there for quite a while. As the family had to split up because of their situation, they became close friends. They text each other all the time.
And unfortunately for Eskridge, he already has a big wrap on that left arm. And they called it an upper body injury he suffered last week, but it looks like there may be swelling in that arm that may have been aggravated on the last 2 plays.
Devontae Freeman into the end zone for a touchdown. The Seminoles with 3 possessions here in the first quarter and 3 touchdowns, and they have barely broken stride against a Syracuse defense that had not given up a touchdown in 2 straight games.
Well, this escalated quickly.
And in case you didn't get that, the sequel comes out in December, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think Ron Burgundy would be impressed with this offense.
I think so. 226 yards in the last 12 plays for the Seminoles. Jameis Winston leads another touchdown drive for the Seminoles of Florida State, trying to get to that 10-0 mark with 2 regular season games left. And they got a big leg up on it right now. They'll take a knee, and here's Robert Flores. Robert.
Hey, Mike, Taco Bell studio update. UCF scored 10 points in the final minute 10 to come from behind to beat Temple. Blake Bortles to Rennell Hall sets up the game-winning field goal, and UCF wins by 3, keeping those BCS bowl hopes alive.
All right, Robert, and those are game-saving stretches there, season-saving.
And if you are Northern Illinois or Fresno State, you're kind of bummed right now, because if UCF goes up in the ratings and they're not above them, they may lose. They're undefeated and at large.
Hunt throws on the run, incomplete, out of bounds. Prince Tyson Gully has been taken to the locker room, and they're going to check out the same ankle that he missed the last week for, and they'll check him out.
72 offense, 10 yards, still first down.
Right tackle Ivan Foy, who moved from guard to tackle and has made a very good transition to that spot, called for holding. And they'll back him up to the 15-yard line.
And this is where Scott Schaefer, offensive coordinator, George McDonald, talking to Terrell Hunt. In these type of situations where we have to call some passes, be very quick in your reads. And if it's not there, pull it down and go.
They need something good to happen. Nothing has so far. They get the ball out to Chris Clark. And Clark is only 5'11", 160. Can really get beat up during a game, but he's got some quicks.
And Clark in that position because Brisley Esteem, true freshman who had really come onto the scene for Syracuse, broke a hand this week. Unable to go, unfortunately for Esteem, another young man from the state of Florida, not able to play today. But there's Clark trying to make something happen, picks up good chunk yardage, but Esteem, a guy that Syracuse was really starting to develop into a threat in that inside receiver position.
The Orange have run 10 plays from scrimmage. They only have 25 yards to show for it. Pressure coming, and they got it. I say they because there were 3 guys that dragged him down. Eddie Goldman was in there from his left defensive end spot. Terrence Smith came up from the middle linebacker.
Well, Terrence Smith,
lead athlete after another, Ed.
Well, and the hard part is the way they do movement. The offensive line ends up sliding over and picking it up. Nick Robinson comes off late. It's what you want the guard to do, to pick up that blitzing linebacker. But because such a nice job by Eddie Goldman getting some pressure, linebacker Smith comes right off and right guard is late.
Another we don't want this down at 3rd and 14. They come with 5, don't get there. Now they do. Joyner came from the corner. Timmy Jernigan came up the middle. Chris Casher came around the end, and they all met at the quarterback.
How many was that? Was that half the team?
Pretty much.
Back there? Joyner, LaMarcus Joyner, having such a spectacular senior year. I think we may have seen the best defensive player in the league last year, Nikita Whitlock, or last week, Nikita Whitlock at Wake Forest. But if there is a guy who's going to push for that ACC Defensive Player of the Year, it might well be LaMarcus Joyner.
Joyner has a sack and a half in the last 2 plays. He is a remarkable corner. He's a little guy at 5'8", 190. It's going to be a procedure penalty on this one. As a matter of fact, Jimbo Fisher said he's not little, he's just short.
Oh, no, very thick guy. And if you saw that blitz, he never gave up. He was blocked about 4 times.
Pac-12 rivals collide tonight on ABC. Tyler Gaffney and the 4th-ranked Cardinal go into the Coliseum to take on the Trojans. Saturday Night Football presented by Windows tonight at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ABC. If
you're Pat Hayden and Ed Orgeron wins out and beats Stanford, got to at least interview the guy for the head job.
Absolutely.
The next coach would be smart to keep Orgeron around, that's for sure.
Yes, he would. Pressure coming on Winston, and he got out of it. But the 3rd man through, Isaiah Johnson, made sure he didn't escape downfield. Sproul came to the middle linebacker spot to break up the timing on the play.
And let's not forget, we had the game last week as Winston's helmet got all torn around during that play. Last week I was mentioning Nikita Whitlock. Whitlock on a beating a blocker went down low and looked like he injured slightly the left leg of Jameis Winston. In this play, the one thing I have noticed in watching, he's not great at avoiding contact. He's a fast runner. He is a bit elusive, but he tends to take direct body shots, and that time he just got blown up at the end of that play.
Winston sets in the pocket this time and throws to Shaw. Shaw down to the 24-yard line. First down, 4 catches for Kenny Shaw in the first quarter. He's on the verge of the top 20 in both career receptions and career yardage for this ball club.
And this was just entirely too easy. Syracuse playing a complete zone, and there are 3 guys standing around a hole in which number 81 stood. That's just too easy.
Well, you say on one hand, you can't let him run free. On the other hand, you can't let him have wide open shots like that to Kelvin Benjamin, and he was drilled in the chest by a great pass.
Benjamin top of the screen. Cornerback coming up. Just a little bit of mistake there by Rashard Anderson. Keon Lynn, the best corner, I think, for Syracuse, has been out with a knee injury, an NFL prospect, and that time Anderson just came up on that outcut route. He's got to continue to back up and break that cushion down.
Winston. Touchdown FSU. This one caught by Rashad Green. We asked at the beginning of the telecast, what kind of test would this be for Florida State to remain in focus, for Jameis Winston to remain in focus? Jameis Winston is 10 out of 10 for 170 yards to start this game. Florida State has scored 28 points in the first half. I'd say their focus is pretty good.
And talking to Jimbo Fisher, and he was very clear with us, the seriousness of these allegations and what came out this week. He was very direct with his team, very upfront, but he said, we've had good weeks of practice. We've had a good, as a Syracuse, another Syracuse player, unfortunately, down on the end line after that play. This is just a terrific throw. Watch the catch by Green. It's great coverage. Terrific coverage. And unfortunately, Julian Wiggum, I think, is the guy who was down. And it was Jeremy Wilkes. It is Wiggum who is down. And that was Jeremy Wilkes who was coming across the free safety. And how often do you see that? When a guy who's trailing and it's a teammate that comes across. And I mentioned that Keon Lynn is already out with a knee injury. And so you're down to 3 cornerbacks. If Wiggum goes down, you're down to basically Anderson
and Reddish.
And Reddish, yeah. I mean, you're going to be deep into your depth for Syracuse in a game that's already starting to get out of hand.
Yeah, just more good news for the Orange.
And here's a team for Syracuse, and here we are. I know we're still in the first quarter, but what a bummer for them. They're sitting. They need 2 wins to become bowl. 1 win to become bowl eligible, and they have a pretty difficult but winnable back half against Pitt and Boston College. But you start getting guys hurt, and boy, what a bummer for them.
And I think they're calling for a gurney. And you just have to hope that Julian Wiggum's going to be okay. We'll check on his condition when we come back to Tallahassee. They have Julian Wiggum on a gurney. We're not going to show you a close-up shot of this. A little too graphic. It looked like he dislocated his right elbow. And he's got to be in extreme pain. His teammates surrounding him as they take him off to the locker room. And he'll get a nice round of applause from this big crowd here in Tallahassee. It is a violent game, but geez, you just hate to see anybody get hurt like that. Now they'll line up for the extra point, and Aguayo knocks it through. And Florida State just running away here. They're up 28-0.
Tough break for Syracuse. Julian Wiggum, as his right arm is in there, and the safety Jeremy Wilkes comes over. A clean hit. Wilkes had his head up, but you just see that so often where the injured player was hit by his own defensive player.
And we understand that Wiggum will be taken to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, where he can get the best medical care available. And we certainly wish him the best and hope it's not as serious as it looked. Well, if you're Syracuse, you've just seen, you know, a really good player of yours taken off the field on a gurney. You've given up 4 first-quarter touchdowns. How do you possibly regroup? What do you, if you're a coach, what do you say to your players? If you're a player, what do you say to your teammates?
Got to play the next play. You just have to focus. You know, it's the process. Go back to like what Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban and all these coaches talk about. It really just has to become, what play are we going to run on first down after we return this kick? That's what it's got to boil down to.
Morris and McFarland are deep, and again, Aguayo with a great kickoff.
Well, obviously a huge story this week with the off-the-field news for Jameis Winston. On the field, he's played spectacularly well. He threw a great block earlier in the game for Kermit Whitfield. He's been incredible in the pocket. Every time Syracuse has seemed to be getting there, he's thrown the ball well, and here just throws an absolute dime to Kenny Shaw, who was covered very well, running to the back of the end zone. So a really good start on the field for Jameis Winston this afternoon.
Smith trying to get something started offensively, swallowed up at the line of scrimmage. You know, when they look at the tape, the one play that Jameis Winston is going to want to have them replay time after time is that block.
Well,
and look at me, I'm downfield throwing a block.
Well, Kermit, his teammate, is one of the fastest guys in the world, and he had to slow down a bit. Now, Whitfield was cutting, and that made him slow down. But
Syracuse is going to let the clock run out, and mercifully the first quarter will end. Nothing has gone well for the Orange. Everything has gone perfectly for the Seminoles of Florida State, and they are up 28-0, end of 1. On the left, the greatest golfer of all time, Jack Nicklaus. His grandson becoming a star in his own right, Florida State tight end Nick O'Leary, who is one of the nation's best.
O'Leary has become such a great tool for Florida State in the middle of the field. Of course, had that huge game, 161 receiving yards against Clemson in that blowout.
Flanker screen, pass complete to Broiled, and Ashton gets up with within a yard of a first down. Here's Robert Flores.
All right, Mike, Dr. Pepper 10 conference update from the SEC. Auburn, they've won 6 in a row, looking for 7 as they take on Georgia at home. Corey Grant, 21-yard touchdown run. Tigers leading the Bulldogs 10-0 at the end of 1.
You know, everybody keeps putting Alabama in the national championship game. That's going to be an interesting Iron Bowl. Auburn,
yes, it always is
a whole different team than they saw last year.
Nothing. Jerome Smith just drilled as he got back to the line of scrimmage. The middle of that defensive line, led by Timmy Jernigan, rose up and squashed him.
Well, if there's going to be an inside run play, it's up to your nose guard. Going against Mackie McPherson. McPherson, a very good, scrappy center, not the most powerful guy, but Jernigan, you could see his hand placement was inside the center, shocked his shoulders back and pushed him right into the running back. That was a nice job by the nose guard. Exactly what you'd want on that play.
4th and a yard and a half. Dixon will punt it away to Shaw. Low snap, but he comes up with it. Shaw makes fair catch at the 21-yard line. 46-yard punt, no return. Early second quarter, Seminoles rolling again. Life game summary for the Seminoles. Can't get much better than that. 77 touchdowns, 74 touchdowns, 79 touchdowns, 39 touchdowns, sensing a pattern. And Winston 10 out of 10 to start the game. Syracuse comes with a blitz. They don't get there. Shaw underneath. Nice move to get free. Picks up an additional 7 yards with his 5th catch. Here's Janine.
Well, Mike and Ed, I just spoke with Herman Frazier. He's the deputy athletic director for Syracuse, and he told me that Julian Wiggin has been taken to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, and he said they just located his family up in the seats, and they have staff members taking Wiggins' family to the hospital to be with him. They believe that Wiggins has a chest injury. That's what he reported to me. He said that they are hoping for the best for Julian Wiggin, who will be, of course, examined once he gets to the hospital.
Syracuse.
Thank you, Janine. Whatever it was, he was obviously in intense pain. The way he was flailing around down there, and they were taking no chances. They got the gurney out as soon as they made a preliminary diagnosis. He's trying to cover. He's number 21.
Well, you see the body there of Jeremy Wilkes. Again, Wilkes doing exactly what he should be doing as safety. His head was up. He was not launching into any players. So just one of those plays where bodies are going in different directions, and you could see Wiggin. We thought, you know, his arm looked like it took the brunt, but there you could see the full force of Wilkes' body come into Wiggum's chest. So,
I mean, the sternum and the collarbone are very, are very open to injury in that kind of situation. But we wish the young man the best, and we will pass along through Janine any information that we get for you, for all the Syracuse fans who would be concerned about him. And this one right off the helmet of Trey Jackson, the right guard, in the first pass that Winston missed today. They were trying to run a little inside screen. And Jackson's got to be thinking, what?
And technically, there should be a penalty. Can't touch an offensive lineman
That's
first,
right.
But I'm not sure that the officials saw that it actually caught the dome of Trey Jackson as he was hustling over trying to make a block.
Jackson never saw it, but he certainly heard it.
It hurts, too. You get hit in the side of the football.
Benjamin, all 6'4", 6'5", 235 pounds of them, taken down by Darrell Eskridge, but it's another first down.
Real growth on this team has been this offensive line. Even when pressure comes, even when there is a little bit of pressure, they're not letting guys go. They're at least in front of them. Nice to have Brian Stork, the senior back who missed the center start last week against Wake Forest with an ankle and foot injury.
Blitz coming. Winston throws underneath. Rashad Green. Rick Trickett, the well-renowned line coach for Florida State, threw a lot of these guys in there together and said, you're the best athletes we got. You're going to learn together. You're going to take your lumps together, and it has paid off.
And it was a bumpy road to get to where they are now. And you think about Florida State, it has been a long while since they've put guys in the NFL from that position.
Winston underneath, and O'Leary fights his way inside the 25-yard line. He's just got so many weapons. All three wide receivers are guys that can get open. O'Leary can do it. Guys out of the backfield can do it.
They found a guy like Kermit Whitfield who can do it in world-class speed.
Offside, number 13 defense, penalty be declined, second down.
How's this for a stat? Florida State has not gotten to third down yet. I mean, come on.
It's hard to get them off the field. That's the case.
Well, you get them off the field because they've scored. Shaw looking for a block. Great deep move, gets open inside the 10. I mean, they have not had a third down yet.
And Scott Schaefer, who was the defensive coordinator at Stanford when they were 1-3 and knocked off a top-ranked USC team. So he said, I've been there. But we asked him, what's the weakness of this Florida State team? He said, I don't think they have a very good 4th and 15 package.
That's right.
Well, if you're not getting them to third down, it's hard to get them into 4th and 15.
Yeah, 4th-string running backs, not too sharp.
Got to have a sense of humor.
To the end zone, it's almost unfair. Benjamin. 5'10" Wayne Morgan had him right in his sights. He's all over him, but he gives up 7 inches and about 30 pounds.
And once again, I don't know that you can throw the ball more accurately to your tall receiver. In play, left foot down, ball's controlled. Make sure as he goes to the ground, it stays controlled. But I just don't know that you can throw the ball better than Jameis Winston has to.
No. They've run 16 first down plays, 8 second down plays. It's really all they've needed. And they are taking a Syracuse defense to the woodshed, a defense that didn't give up touchdowns in the last 2 complete games, giving up 7. Here at Florida State, Dodd Hall is home to the Philosophy, Religion, and Classic departments, along with the Workmeister Humanities Reading Room and the Heritage Museum. I always make it a point to drop by when I'm in town.
What'd you read this time?
Can't tell you.
Gotcha.
It was Greek. I couldn't see the title. Syracuse finally with a chance to return a kickoff, and George Morris pays for it. He was plastered at the 20. A.J. McCarron, number 1 Alabama, go to Starkville to face Dan Mullen and Mississippi State tonight. College football primetime presented by Hampton Hotels tonight at 7:45 on ESPN. Also live on Watch ESPN.
I don't suspect that game will be close, but Alabama is going to play, I think, much more competitive games down the stretch than Florida State is. If Florida State wins out and they get more than a month off, if I'm Florida State, I'm starting to worry about, are our guys going to be fine enough tuned to play a team that good?
Hunt throws out in the flat, complete to Broyle. Broyle will pick up about 4. Robert Flores with an update from the studio. Robert.
All right, Mike, Duke and Miami, they could have a date with Florida State in the ACC title game. Brandon Connect to Shaquille Powell, and Miami clinging to a 3-point lead, second quarter on the road.
And Miami certainly played competitively against Florida State early. It was a very physical ball game, and then the Seminoles broke out. That might be the only the only team that has a chance to get in the championship game that would have a chance against these guys.
And that's what I was just making a comment about, was just the level of competition. Georgia Tech, of course, loses to Clemson on Thursday night. If Miami beats Duke, with Virginia Tech losing, Miami would lose the tiebreaker to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech lost to Maryland today, unbelievably. But Duke sitting there, if they get the win against Miami, Duke sitting in the catbird seat with 2 losses and some games, frankly, that I think they could potentially win against at Wake Forest and at North Carolina to finish the season for Duke.
Hunt wants to get that first down, throws underneath. This will be an interesting spot because the receiver retreated on his own, and that was Beckett Wales, the tight end. They're going to mark it right at the sticks.
And Scott Schaefer, did you see? He just walked over, started laughing. He just he wanted to know, did we make it? And the official told him yes.
And I'm sure they're upset on the Florida State sideline.
Nice throw by Hunt. I think the Syracuse staff, Doug Marrone, of course, left and took a lot of staff with him to the Buffalo Bills, had really built this program back. But I think Hunt was the right choice. I think there are some things to build around this guy.
Devontae McFarland just gets lit up by Timmy Jernigan.
Well, Jernigan doing a wonderful job. Ivan Foy blocking down. We said that this was going to be the matchup. Watch this inside as everybody's blocking down. But that was Jernigan. As Foy came down to block him, Jernigan, instead of going up the field, did an arm over move to the left and completely made the offensive lineman whiff. Good read by Jernigan. That's a play they run all the time. I bet you he knew he was about to be blocked down.
4-man rush. Hunt chased. Throws to McFarland on the screen. McFarland with running room to the 49-yard line. That'll be a first down. A gain of 22, by far the best offensive play for the Orange.
And I know Syracuse is outmanned in this game, but there are some things to build out. McFarland, a guy, when we had Syracuse earlier in the year against Penn State, coach is very excited about him. George Morris looks like a good runner as a freshman as well. And I know they're a bit outmanned, but how many teams is Florida State? Could you say that about Florida State?
All of them.
There's probably 6 or 7 teams that are at Florida State's level in the entire country. But I think this Syracuse team in a new league, they have Florida State and Clemson in their division, and Scott Schaefer trying to sell that to recruits. You get to play against the best.
You do that. Here's Morris. Gets outside for 3 or 4. I think you're overestimating the talent of the rest of college football if you're going to put 6 or 7 other teams in the same level of athletic ability.
No, what I would say is be able to compete with Florida State. I think Stanford competes. I think Oregon competes. I'm not saying they're at this level.
Clemson on another day.
On another day competes. Yeah. I just, for Syracuse though, you see the pieces here for a team that I think they'll win a game to get into a bowl game this year, which would be 3 out of the last 4 years. I think they're building something.
Morris fighting for first down yardage and has it.
And who's playing harder right now? Syracuse or Florida State? Yeah, and this is Jimbo Fisher has talked a ton about how much work you have to do to stay focused in games that start getting out of hand. Well, Florida State has a ton of practice with it, but right now, the guys in white jerseys playing a lot harder than the guys in the dark jerseys.
First time Syracuse has crossed midfield in this ball game.
And that's all you can do. If you're coaching in this game for Syracuse, all you can do is say, play the next play it as hard as you can, come back and do it again.
McFarland in the backfield with Hunt. Hunt with a pump fake, a man in his face. And there is a perfectly clean hit by Jalen Ramsey, the safety. Remember how before the targeting rule, you had guys who would blow up receivers? Well, he just drilled a guy, and he did it the right way.
And Scott Schaefer was talking to the side judge to see. Yep, absolutely clean hit. That's a good call, Mike. You know, when you said it, I thought, well, wait a minute. But you see the head turn. He's not leading at the head, neck, or shoulders. He's not leading with the crown of his helmet. That was a very clean, and at this speed, that is a really tough call. And unfortunately for Gerard West, get banged up a little bit.
Morris taken out of bounds at the 36-yard line.
And I think it's really important for young players like Ramsey. This guy is a true freshman with an incredible future for Florida State. The game is changing for safeties. This was a guy who was playing corner. He moved to safety. When you have that shot, you have to slow your brain down just for a second and say, keep my head up, don't launch, because that's part of targeting. Use my shoulder, use my arms, and I give Ramsey a lot of credit there. That was a clean hit.
Like Kermit Whitfield, he's a decathlete. Those are the guys that they're getting. McFarland.
And I think you got to go for it here if you're Syracuse. Why not?
Absolutely.
You're down 35, your side of the field.
It was a strange call on 3rd and 6.
Yeah. Well, I think they were thinking we're going for it on 4th, so if we can sneak one on a run, but you think maybe wide receiver screen there?
4th and a long 4. Crowd trying to get in it. Stack the wide receivers to the near side and 2 to the far side. Seminoles show blitz and they come. The ball on the ground and Florida State will take over on downs. At first blush, it looked like Hunt had his eyes on a receiver downfield. The ball just went right past him.
He was looking at the blitz.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. It was a perfectly fine snap. It was actually put right on the right hand of the quarterback, but you can see the pressure coming, and the eyes of the quarterback went to that pressure and never saw the ball. You could see his head did not turn. Hard to blame a guy. As well as Florida State is playing, as many athletes as they have, and there was Terrence Brooks, the senior strong safety, back from a concussion, missed last week against Wake Forest for Florida State, making a big play.
Knew he had to get it out quickly, but you got to catch it first. Seminoles on the ground with Wilder. Lowers his shoulder and pounds his way inside the 40. Jeremy Wilkes at 179 pounds did the only thing he could. Went down and cut him at the ankles.
I just don't suspect we're going to see much more of Jameis Winston standing in the pocket, throwing the ball down the field. If anything, we saw it against Wake Forest last week in that first half. You start sitting this guy in the pocket, he could get injured.
Got to play him enough to keep him sharp.
Absolutely.
And then you don't want him to get hurt. Now that's a fine line to walk, isn't it? Winston under pressure. They got him this time. Struggling not to go down, but he will back at the 47-yard line. Good pressure by Sproul and Micah Robinson.
Well, we were talking about the sack on Jameis Winston. We haven't mentioned yet that Jacob Coker, the backup quarterback, very gifted second-string quarterback for Florida State, injured his knee last week against Wake Forest, had surgery, is done for the year. And so Sean McGuire, who has 2 pass attempts in his career.
How many?
2. Is now the new number 2 at Florida State. So gotta be careful with Jameis Winston. If he gets injured, you're down to a guy with almost 0 experience.
Blitz again. He unloads. Got it to Green. Rashard Green steps out of bounds near the 36-yard line.
And that's
a 3rd down. They finally got to 3rd down. If you joined us late, they had not had a 3rd down till now. It's unbelievable.
Well, the bad news for Syracuse is Florida State's one of the best teams in 3rd down conversions in the country.
Yes. They convert better than 50%. But Syracuse has done very well against offenses on 3rd down. So this is strength against strength right now. Winston underneath and a drop by Green.
Well, the ball was just a bit behind Green. But this is something that Green is going to be mad that he didn't make the catch for. And here comes, of course, they have a very good kicker at Florida State in Aguayo. But yeah, Green's going to want that one back. And this is, they're comfortable with this young man out to almost 60 yards. So they're doing well in recruiting kickers too.
Yes. His long so far this year, 45. This would be 53. plenty of leg. Good grief. Good from 60?
Maybe 65.
Yikes. It's a career-long 53-yard shot. Had it by plenty. When was the last time you looked at 53 like it was a chip shot? 38-0 Seminoles. A lot of people thought favoring Florida State by 5 touchdowns was overdoing it today against a Syracuse team that had not allowed a touchdown in 2 weeks. Apparently not.
This team is pretty stacked, and they seem to be playing their very best at every position right now.
Aren't they? Morris and McFarland are deep. Morris from the 8. And hit from the side and flattened at the 27-yard line. What a shot by Reggie Northrup. We'll check in with Janine Edwards.
Well, Mike and Ed, as we've been stating since the beginning of the show, as you know, Jameis Winston is part of an investigation into an alleged sexual assault case that the state's attorney's office here in Leon County is investigating. Now, the office says that the investigation could be wrapped up as early as next week. Now, we do know that there were at least 2 witnesses to this alleged incident. They have been interviewed by the prosecutor's office. At least one of those witnesses is a Florida State football player. Now, if felony charges are brought against Winston, and that is a big if, but per Florida State policy, he would be immediately suspended. And as Ed had mentioned, right now, their backup quarterback, Sean McGuire, is someone who has thrown just 2 passes in his college career.
It would certainly have an incredible impact on this team as a club going forward. And this springs from an incident that was reported last December. Terrell Hunt lucky he could get up after that last shot from Christian Jones. I think the Seminoles had a little talking to on the sideline after the last drive, don't you?
I think Florida State, and I've just been so impressed with Jeremy Pruitt, the first-year defensive coordinator.
Yes,
I think he's just a really bright coach and has a great system in place. But it's looking to me like this front from Florida State knows the schemes that Syracuse is running. Sometimes offensive lines tip what they're going to do by their stance, and you can tell those 2 guys are going to double team him. That guy's going to pull. That time it was a run through by a linebacker who I think knew that the 2 guys were going to pull to his side, and he's able to run through. This looks like great recognition.
Florida State runs a very complicated defense, a very complicated offense, and you have to have really bright people to do that. Hunt on a scramble takes it out to the 34-yard line. Be a couple of yards shy of a first down, and here's Janine.
Well, Mike and Ed, I just wanted to give you a quick update on Syracuse's Julian Wiggum. He is at the hospital. I'm told that his mother is with him, and they are telling me that his vital signs are stable. So that is a small piece of good news right now for Julian Wiggum. Mike?
All right, Janine, thank you very much. And our thoughts go out to that young man and his family.
And of course, Wiggum, the cornerback who was hurt on a touchdown earlier when he was hit by his own man in the chest and arm area.
Rugby style kick. Returnable. Shaw got a great block and took it up to the 39-yard line. 16-yard return after a 45-yard punt. Brandon Reddish made the tackle. A trivia question. Who was the first coach in Florida State history with 5 straight winning seasons?
A lot of people forget Florida State was not a football dominant school for the better part of its beginning years. And it wasn't until that coach showed up that things started to turn around here.
Well, they didn't start football until the late 40s here. Pass underneath and a big hit after the catch.
One of the things
One
of the things we noticed last week in getting to know this coaching staff is how hard Jeremy Pruitt works when the other team's defense is on the field. They track every single play, every single formation, every single route. He redraws it between plays to go through corrections on every play. It's amazing.
Pressure on Winston. They got him. He almost spun out of it. But a good job by Dashawn Davis.
This is tough. I understand that you have to, like you mentioned, you have to give Winston his work. You have to give your team some work. But this is the second week in a row when the game feels like it's out of hand, that this guy's getting thrown around and his legs getting caught up underneath defensive players. I'm not saying I understand why he's in, but there's just got to be a point where you figure, you know what, let's get this guy out of here.
Devontae Freeman needs to do a better job as a pass protector than he did on that last one. That was not much of a block. He stands in there this time against the same kind of pressure, and they get it to Benjamin. And Kelvin Benjamin spun down after his 6th catch at the 45-yard line.
But that is something as a head coach that you have to manage. When you have a team like Florida State has, and the ACC, the league's just not great this year besides Florida State and Clemson, you have to really start to manage. My last year at the University of Washington, we had a similar season to this where we got way ahead of some teams, and you've got to get your work, and it is a hard balance, that's for sure.
Good protection with a 4-man rush. Winston can run for it and does, and takes a couple of knocks as he gets to the 47-yard line.
Yeah, and
it's not your classic slide.
No, and that's the thing. This guy is a terrific athlete, but I mentioned this earlier. He does not avoid contact well at all. When he gets into the open field, he takes so many hits like this. And, you have to start talking about this guy's future, of course, maybe playing professional ball. At some point, he's got to start figuring out how to avoid people, slide, get down faster. In my study of this young man, he just sets himself up sometimes and doesn't get down, doesn't quite avoid the contact as much as you'd like him to.
Kason Beatty will come on to punt, his first punt of the day. He's only had 27 in the first 9 games. I'm amazed he's had that many. Seminoles will use a timeout.
The timeout will be 30 seconds.
On 4th and 7, so Syracuse finally stops the Seminoles. We asked you the Aflac trivia question, who was the first coach in Florida State history with 5 straight winning seasons? The answer is Bill Peterson. Coach Pete had those 5 straight between 1966 and 1970 when this stadium was about a fourth of what it is now.
But they had the old style goalposts, so those are now called Pete's posts here at Florida State, the double post. But it is really unbelievable what Bill Peterson did here when the state was not very populated at all. It wasn't like there was big-time high school football in the state. He had to go north to get a lot of guys out of Ohio and Pennsylvania. And we'll show you later in the second half. If you want to talk about the coach of coaches, I'm not sure there's a bigger one in the history of college football than Bill Peterson.
And he decided they were going to throw the football, and boy, did they ever. The entire NASCAR season comes down to one race tomorrow afternoon on ESPN. The question is, with Jimmy Johnson on the brink of a 6th championship, can anybody pull the upset? The Ford EcoBoost 400 at Homestead, Miami, tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock on ESPN. He just has to stay out of trouble. Easier said than done.
Crash.
Yes. Matt Kenseth has given himself the best chance because he took the pole.
I think Syracuse, with 2 timeouts, 42 seconds. Well, they're going to run. Same thing I think you got to manage sometimes is we want some growth in our program. Maybe it's time to let Terrell Hunt run a little bit of a hurry-up drill against this level of defense. With the injury Syracuse suffered in that first half, I'm sure they're happy to kind of get to halftime and regroup, but this could be a work session as well for Syracuse.
Hunt took over in the 3rd game from Drew Allen, the transfer from Oklahoma, who started the season, threw a lot of picks. And they decided Hunt was a better runner, more mobile, and they went with him. And Syracuse now showing no interest in running another play here. They're going to let it go and take a 38-point deficit with them into the locker room to try to regroup here in Tallahassee. That's the end of the half. Florida State 38, Syracuse nothing. When we come back, the studio brings you up to date on everything at halftime after these messages. Welcome back to the ACC on ESPN. We're at Doak Campbell Stadium in Tallahassee, Florida. Halftime where the Seminoles are bombarding Syracuse 38-0. Well, once Osceola planted the spear, it's been downhill from then.
And I think for Florida State, the biggest thing here in the second half is manage your personnel well. I just don't think we're going to see Jameis Winston, as much as he got banged up against Wake Forest last week at the end of the first half, and of course at the end of the first half here. But you still have to get a lot of your first teamers some time, get your key second stringers some time, because between now and if they do win out and go play in the national championship, I'm not sure that the level of competition is going to get much better than they're playing against right now.
All right, thanks, Ed. Let's check in with Janine.
Well, guys, I spoke to Jimbo Fisher, who was very, very pleased with the focus of Jameis Winston in that first half. He said he was excellent. He was spot on. And, guys, he tied his first half season high for yardage. Now, about Sean Maguire, he will probably come into the game after Winston plays a couple of more drives. That's the estimation. Sean Maguire, the backup, the biggest things that Jimbo Fisher is going to be looking for are how does he manage the game? How does he make the signals and the reads? How does he communicate with the rest of the team? Those are the things that he's going to be looking for as this game goes on.
Janine, you answered the question that I wanted to ask. How long is the starter going to play? And then their new backup quarterback. He's got to get some playing time. Got to be ready. They have a freshman who has not given up his red shirt as his backup.
And with Jacob Coker, who was injured last week, the number 2 guy who had actually battled Jameis Winston for the starting job through spring and part of training camp before they decided going with Winston. But Coker, a guy who injured his knee last week. So with the uncertainty off the field for Jameis Winston, now we'll see him on the field playing a game that is out of hand.
Morris and McFarland are deep as Syracuse will get the ball to start the third quarter. And Morris at the goal line. That team speed, it's really tough to beat Florida State on kick returns. Let's take a look at our Pacific Life game summary. And the Seminoles went well into the second quarter before they even faced a third down. Jameis Winston has only missed 2 passes. One of those was dropped. He has been spot on the entire game. The running game has produced 97 yards and 3 touchdowns. Very little to criticize on either side of the ball for Florida State.
I'm sure they will find something.
It's what coaches do.
Yeah.
And they'll start on the ground, and the game starts the same way in the third quarter as it did in the first, as Jerome Smith swallowed up by Timmy Jernigan.
And this is, again, paying this forward, and there's a lot of ball to be played this season. As we know, pigs occasionally fly in college football. But if Florida State wins out, they play Idaho, not the entire state, just the team, the Vandals. Then they play Florida, who's completely depleted. And then in the championship game, we'll see what happens with Duke Miami. But you've got to suspect they'll be a big favorite there, too. I think Timmy Jernigan, the nose guard for Florida State, is I think he's trying to be in on every single tackle today. I have seen number 8 when the ball's outside, he is just having a blast. His energy level is good. He's a spy here, but watch the speed running over there to make the tackle.
That's pretty good for a 300-pounder to be hustling like that, up 38-0.
And he's the only guy on this defensive front who plays just about every snap. But you're right, that's great hustle.
Hunt on 3rd and long. And throws wide of his intended receiver, Ashton Broiled. That may be interference, as Broiled had his pattern cut off.
Pass interference, defense, number 20. The penalty is an automatic first down and spot of the foul. First down.
All-American candidate LaMarcus Joyner.
And Florida State runs a lot of man coverage
Yep.
Yep. You can make contact as long as the ball's not in the air. That was completely legal until the ball was thrown by Joyner. But you see that technique there? He knew exactly the route Broyle was going to run. They run a matchup zone.
Your players have to be so athletic and so smart to run that kind of defense. It's almost beyond description.
Well, and the way that Florida State plays in the secondary, obviously very close to what Alabama does. That's where Jeremy Pruitt came from. But they line up, and for all the world, it looks like right now they'll have 2 safeties back. For all the world, it looks like they're going to play a 2-deep zone coverage where everyone drops off, gets their spot, and watches. But they work really hard on pattern recognition. As soon as the receivers get to their break point, all of the guys that look like they're playing zone then start to break on guys and play man-to-man.
They'll give it up to Morris.
Boy, what a new lease on life Christian Jones got, the senior. When Jeremy Pruitt got here, he said, I looked at this guy, 6'4", 235 pounds, and I thought I found my middle linebacker. Middle linebacker is a very, very unique spot. Some guys can't play it. And he said by the end of spring we realized we had Jones in the wrong spot. They moved him to outside linebacker. He'll line up at end. But he is one of the multiple players Florida State has moved from positions to make him better.
And he's flourished on the outside, and Terrence Smith has flourished in the middle. So it was a great adjustment. Blitz coming. Boy, Hunt just got crushed. The safety, Jalen Ramsey, timed it perfectly, and Hunt was totally exposed.
So now you've got a third level blitz coming from the linebackers blitz and the third level blitz. And unfortunately for Hunt, Ramsey, and good coverage there as well by Joyner down the field. But Ramsey, that's the second time I've seen him come in and make a good clean hit with his shoulder and his head up.
Dixon to kick to Kenny Shaw. Shaw runs up on a low kick, breaks past the first wave. Kenny Shaw across midfield, out of bounds at the 46. 24-yard return after a line drive, 34-yard kick.
He was tackled by an offensive lineman, Mike. Nick Robinson. Nice job, Nick.
Quarterback, the 6'3", 215-pound redshirt freshman out of Sparta, New Jersey, Sean McGuire. In his brief college career, he is 1 out of 2 throwing for 11 yards. Rushed the ball 6 times for -1.
And he's a young man who actually ran a wing T run-based offense in high school. But you could see the arm, and Jimbo Fisher thinks this young man has a very bright future. Of course, Jameis Winston in the same class as Sean McGuire, which is tough sledding. But this is a young man that Fisher feels good about. Of course, got all the second-string reps this week after Coker was out in that Wake Forest game.
Freeman down to the 37-yard line.
And as suspected, some first stringers for Florida State. I would have been surprised if Jameis Winston had come into the game for this second half, but not surprised that some guys like Freeman, the offensive line, it really does start to hurt you as the season goes on if you're not getting those reps.
And if you are going to have to count on Sean McGuire at some point, you need him to be working with the first teamers to get those kind of reps. Wilder straight up the middle. Touchdown. Oh, what an athlete. 37 yards. His dad would be proud. 3 carries, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just another day at the office for James Wilder.
Do you know who the fullback had to block on that one? Nobody. Went through the hole, nobody's there. Wilder pushed him out of the way, went for 6.
Well, to his credit, he was looking.
He was looking. His head was on a swivel.
It would be hard to imagine a more dominating performance than Florida State is throwing at Syracuse right now. It's 45. You added a $15 million indoor practice field to its already impressive array of athletic facilities as the between the elites, the battle for the best this and the best that, and it just seems never ending, does it?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that keeping up with the Joneses is very strong in college football these days.
Aguayo to kick to Morrison McFarland.
Or should I say keeping up with the Oregons?
Yes. Yes, that would be the gold standard in practice facilities and offices for sure. Let's check in with Janine.
Well, Mike and Ed, I just spoke with Dr. Brad Rayfel. He is the team physician for the Syracuse Orange, and he gave me an update on cornerback Julian Wiggum, who is at the hospital with his mother. He said he is conscious, he is breathing on his own, his vital signs are good, he is undergoing tests as we speak, and actually Dr. Rayfel just got off the phone, so he said that information is still coming in. But right now, what the team is trying to figure out is how seriously is Wiggum injured, and how do they get him home, and when do they get him home? In other words, does the team wait for him tonight, or do they go on without him? So right now they're awaiting information from the doctors at the hospital.
Thank you, Janine. Those are some pretty serious terms to be used about an athlete. He's number 21. He's going to get hit by his teammate. Appears to be in the chest. We were told initially he had dislocated his elbow. He may have done that, but I have to assume the chest injury is more important.
And he was writhing in pain. Not long after that, he fell to his side and was in an awful lot of pain before they were able to get him in the ambulance into the hospital.
Hunt looking, throws incomplete. There was a little bit of contact over there near the 40-yard line. The pass was intended for Jay Cleveland, the fullback.
And I think for Syracuse, kind of the same issue. I think you got to keep Hunt in here, because if this is the guy that's going to carry you as a sophomore, you lose Drew Allen, the transfer after this year, the senior. You need another win to become bowl eligible. I think this is the right move for Syracuse to continue to work the guys that they need to get a win against Boston College and/or Pitt.
Oh, absolutely. McFarland on the handoff plows ahead for a couple, and we'll check in with Robert Flores. Robert?
All right, Mike, checking in on that Miami-Duke game on ESPNU. Brandon Cannett has accounted for 4 touchdowns. He's rushed for 3 and thrown for another. Miami has just scored to make it close, 28-27 on ESPNU.
Robert, how about David Cutcliffe for Coach of the Year? I mean, just an unbelievable job. And there is an Assistant Coach of the Year award, the Frank Broyles Award. I can't think of anybody more deserving than Tracy Claeys at Minnesota. A brilliant job he's done filling in for Jerry Kill.
Well, he's the head coach now. What about Big Ten coaching?
Yes, sir. Why not? That pass may have been tipped. It was behind McFarland. And it was tipped by Chris Casher.
A couple of weeks ago, we were doing an ACC game, and I half-jokingly said, what about Duke playing for the ACC championship game? Well, if they win today, they have the inside track.
Amazing.
Yeah, they'll be the only team in their division, the coastal side of the ACC, with 2 losses. And David Cutcliffe had to do that, replacing 11 of his total of 22 starters off of the bowl team, including a passing quarterback in Sean Renfrey, and going to more of a spread athletic attack. It's really impressive what he's done at Duke.
Jesus Wilson lets the punt go. And Syracuse will be able to down it after 43 yards. The Seminoles will take over. 9:16 to go, third quarter. Already 45-0 Florida State. Good alumni here, huh? And this guy, one of the best multi-sport athletes that ever played, Charlie Ward. He was a great guard on the basketball team, won the Heisman as the Seminoles quarterback, and he's with our Janine Edwards right now.
That's right. Charlie is here as part of that 20th anniversary celebration of that 93 team. You're the first Heisman winner to come out of Florida State. But talking about that 93 season, what's your most vivid or favorite memory?
Well, I guess the most vivid and favorite was when we went to University of Florida. They had a 23-game home winning streak, and our season and championship hopes were on the line, and we ended up ending that game with the long run by Warwick Dunn to close the game, so that was great.
Carlos Williams inside the 20-yard line, 56 yards from the number 3 tailback.
Well, as Charlie Ward was just talking about a long run to close out that game against Florida, not that Florida State needs a long run to close out this win against Syracuse, but the depth of athlete. Carlos Williams was a safety earlier in the year, and now they're talking about him as maybe being the next great Florida State back. It is a little embarrassing, the level of athlete they're starting to get here.
They moved him from defense between the first and second game of the year because they needed some depth there. I'd say he provided depth. And that's Chad Abram. You have to throw the fullback a bone every once in a while. That's his 5th carry this year. Count them.
Both guys in the backfield right now are former safeties. Abram came in as a safety, as did Williams. I guess the moral to that story is stop recruiting running backs. Just go for safeties and
That's
convert.
Right. Charlie Ward is standing by with Janine. As soon as this drive is over, we'll get back to him. And McGuire throws a touchdown pass to Nick O'Leary. O'Leary in the corner of the end zone, the first career touchdown pass for Sean McGuire, who was the 3rd-string quarterback. Now he's number 2, and that was a beautiful throw.
I was going to say, that looks like a guy who's thrown more than just a couple of balls in college. And O'Leary's starting to become, now that he has a school record with that touchdown catch, he's starting to become one of the top receiving tight ends in the country.
Oh, absolutely.
He has such a great feel for coverage, unbelievably soft hands, a very good athlete in space. I think O'Leary is a guy who's going to play for a long time at the next level.
He almost single-handedly destroyed Clemson, had 161 receiving yards against the Tigers.
And Jimbo Fisher was talking about McGuire, how he played in a running system, and you just can't throw it better. You know, I really feel for Syracuse. They have had some unbelievably good coverage. Brandon Reddish missed that ball by a fingernail. And this Syracuse bunch, I know this feels awful, but they have competed.
There's Jack Nicklaus. We had a chance to speak with him briefly at the half. Loves the way his grandson has been playing. And why not? He came into this game tied for 2nd in the FBS with 6 touchdown passes among tight ends, and he just added to that total.
Looks like he plays 3rd base for the Boston Red Sox.
Got the beard working. 52-0. And the disparity in the statistics reflect the disparity in the score.
503 to 92 in yardage. And there is the time of possession stat, which has become absolutely irrelevant in most of modern football.
This team is just a machine. There's no other way around it. Let's check in with Janine. She's still with Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie was talking about that special 1993 championship season. These guys are starting to look an awful lot like that team that you played on. When you watch the Seminoles play, and Jameis Winston, the quarterback in particular, what stands out?
Well, he's a very poised guy to be so young, and he does a lot of great things on the football field as far as his reads and his accuracy. But more importantly, he's a winner, and he wants to get it right, and he's willing to listen and learn, which is something that a lot of young quarterbacks or people don't like to do, but he's very good at it, and that's why he's playing well.
Based on the news this week that he is part of an investigation into an alleged sexual assault case, and you're a Heisman voter, should that news impact people's opinions of him on how they vote in the Heisman?
Well, there is a key word, allegation, and so there's nothing confirmed or anything, and you know, there's still some investigating that needs to get done. So for us to jump to any kind of conclusion about what's going to happen or what has happened or transpired, we don't know. So as long as he's out here playing, and he's playing very well, regardless of what may be said on the outside, all I call that is distractions.
Well, one thing we do know, this team is very, very good, and they've got a lot of weapons. And Charlie Ward, we thank you for stopping by to chat.
I appreciate it, Janine.
Had the privilege of doing some of Charlie's games, and particularly remember the great basketball team he played on with Bobby Sura and those guys. I mean, they were wonderful. That was a great period for the Seminoles.
I was in the NFL when Charlie Ward had that season at Florida State, and I'm still mad at him for going to the NBA because I thought we could draft him with the Cardinals. I'm telling you, that year in 1993, Charlie Ward, I think, started to redefine in some ways the quarterback position. Ability to run, ability to throw, all together. That year in 93 was just unreal.
Between 89 and 93, the last 2 years, it was as a starter. He passed for 5,700 yards, completed more than 62% of his passes. In that day and age, it was ridiculous. 49 touchdowns, 22 picks, won the Heisman, of course, in 93, played 4 seasons of basketball. Sam Cassell, Bobby Sura, Doug Edwards. He had 91 career games, 4.5 assists, 8 points a game, 2.5 steals. I mean, he was the very definition of a multi-sport.
And went on to a long NBA career. And I still argue he may have been a better quarterback. He was so smooth.
I agree.
He could handle the ball so well. He was decisive with his reads. Of course, that run of teams from the mid-90s all the way into 2000, guys like Deion Sanders and Charlie Ward, is why this is a gold standard program. The great start of Bill Peterson and what he started to build, and then what Bobby Bowden took to the stratosphere. And that's why we're sitting here today with Florida State looking like, because they can recruit this type of guy right back at that spot.
Ball's knocked away, picked up and stolen by Kasher. Chris Kasher, a scoop and score, 29 yards. Holy cow. .6'4", 260, a redshirt freshman. There's so many young guys on this team. Got to scare people to death that have to play him in the future.
And then Jameis Winston goes out to celebrate with his teammate. Of course, last week his defense probably scored too many touchdowns for his liking.
Jimbo Fisher has been true to his word.
Offense had 12 in formation. 5 yards. We'll continue with the try.
Said he is not going to run it up. There was a situation when they were 3rd in the country that people were saying, well, you know, they're going to have to score in the 70s to impress people. Said, there's no way. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to embarrass the game. This is about integrity. But when you put guys out on the field, I mean, what are you going to tell Chris Kasher not to knock that ball away, pick it up, run?
And what are you going to not let McGuire throw it?
Sure,
who's now your
second
string quarterback? Absolutely. And Scott Schaefer across the way and the Syracuse folks, they don't feel like this is being run up. They understand the deal here.
A little more than the last 8 quarters. 138 to 3. 138 to 3.
And you were talking about Miami. Miami gave them a good game. That final was 41 to 14.
Yes.
And it was tight for about 3 quarters. Just Foy laid out of his stance. You know what's nice for Kasher there? He gets a sack, he gets a forced fumble, he gets a fumble recovery, and a touchdown.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Trifecta +1. 59 to nothing. They have scored more than 41 points 10 games in a row. That is their school record that they keep breaking their own mark. And the points off the turnover.
They have almost half as many on defense as the offense has after they gave it back to them.
Tell me if there is one area that you have seen, we've had them 2 weeks in a row, where there is something somebody might be able to exploit. I know you were concerned at one point about the defensive line. They've been
Timmy Jernigan's played. He's played lights out tonight. But that's, if you look at Alabama and what they did to LSU last week, that's where if I'm a Florida State fan, can we hold up to that just constant pounding? But the other part, I think, Mike, is who's going to be more sharp? When we get into early January, and Florida State's been blowing teams out like this, and then they've got 35, I think it's 38 days this year from the ACC championship game. That's where I would be concerned about.
Well, speaking of Alabama, they'll go to Starkville tonight to face Mississippi State. It's college football primetime, presented by Hampton Hotels tonight at 7:45 on ESPN. Also live on Watch ESPN.
And for Alabama, this would be the third time out of 4 years that they've played for the national championship game. And for Florida State, a team that...
Isn't that something?
Yeah, that, you know, they played in the Sugar Bowl last year, but this is not a Florida State team that's been there since 2000. So
Drew Allen has checked in at quarterback. He's the young man who started this season, struggled with throwing the ball, had multiple interceptions, and lost his starting job. Let's take a look at this week's BCS standings, brought to you by Vizio.
Ohio State gets a big win today. And Baylor, the one that's sitting out there at number 5 with no losses, but a really good schedule. It'll be interesting to see how Baylor catches up in this race. There's too much distance between Florida State and the rest of the field. But let Alabama slip up against Auburn or in the SEC championship game and see what happens.
And those undefeated teams that are not in the top 2 can only say, why can't this be next year?
Yeah.
Because then they would be in a playoff for the national championship.
And I think Clemson's thinking the same thing right now, because if Clemson wins out with that one loss and you get a couple of teams above them getting a first or second loss, they might be able to sneak into that Final Four.
Of course, I promise you next year when those top 4 are going to go into the playoff, it's going to be a number 5 team out there that is either a one-loss team or an undefeated team saying, hey, what about us? Can't we expand this to 8?
If you want to have the playoffs when you have them during the holidays, I don't think you can get beyond 4. I just think it's untenable.
Morris wiggles forward, should have a first down, or check if that was first down. He's out to the 38-yard line. Let's check in with Janine.
Well, Mike, I just want to keep the viewers updated on the Julian Wiggum story. Florida State team physician, Dr. Bill Thompson, was kind enough to just give me an update. He actually rode with Wiggum to the hospital, and he told me that there was some internal bleeding, an abdominal chest area injury. And right now the physicians at the hospital are trying to determine if he needs surgery. Dr. Thompson was under the impression he would not be leaving the hospital tonight.
Well, certainly our thoughts go out to him as the Seminoles come up with another pick, another turnover, and it's Dan Hicks, the backup left outside linebacker, who lays out and makes the 9th interception of Drew Allen's season.
And this is why they made a change to get more to a run game, but also Allen has struggled with the interception problem. Good coverage that time by Hicks, but a ball that probably should not have been thrown.
But again, back to Wiggum, our thoughts are certainly with that young man and his family, and we hope that he doesn't have to have surgery and has a rapid recovery.
Wiggum, one of the many players from Syracuse from here in the state of Florida, so his family was here. His mom's with him in the hospital.
Look at the burst from Carlos Williams. He's at full speed after that first step, and he's just flying through whatever hole is there.
How did he last so long at safety is my question. Kind of got lost in the shuffle, but this... yeah, that's tough to defend in the open field.
What a burst. 3 carries, 85 yards for Williams. And they finally got a hold of him before he could get started. Zen Jones, number 77, got a hand on him and wouldn't let go.
You know, we're sitting here at 59-0, and the defensive staff for Florida State continue. The way the defense grows here at Florida State week in and week out is really impressive, because Jeremy Pruitt, the defense coordinator right now, he's buried in there. Look at him working that board. All of them continuing to work during the entire drive that the offense is out there. They never stop covering what happened on the last drive.
It keeps them engaged like any kind of a teacher. This pass is underthrown and it's going to be intercepted. Just hung up for Eskridge. And Sean McGuire would like to have that one back.
Eskridge, another young man from here in the state of Florida for Syracuse, has a really bright future at safety. He's got that left arm injury we saw act up earlier in the ball game. Got that orange sleeve on it. Well, McGuire kind of hopped into that one. I think that looked to me like Kermit Whitfield maybe got knocked off of his route. He was going to run the corner, but Eskridge doing a nice job following the quarterback's eyes to the pick.
It's about the only thing that's happened good for Syracuse today. Allen goes back to work and hands it off to McFarland.
You know, I have never, when I got to the NFL, they give you a printout of what the defense was lined up like before the snap and then right at the snap. So
pictures.
Pictures. And so you've seen Peyton Manning. Everybody sees him flipping through. It was very easy in the NFL to go through every play and say, okay, they did this. That blitz came from here. But in college, you don't have that. That's not a part of what they do to study the game. So what they did at Alabama and what Jeremy Pruitt brought here is they hand draw all of that so that they can go through them with all the players every single time they're off the field and at halftime.
So if there's an 8-play drive and the defense comes off the field, then he's got these 8 drawings of the formation, the routes, and everything else. And that's what he's talking to the defense about, saying this was what they did. Here's the defense we were in. We got to change this. And they do it for every single play. Nobody's sitting around looking at the crowd. Nobody's sitting around doing anything. They're working.
And what's beautiful about what they do is the backups are hearing that after every play. So even if they're not in, everyone's got to be around that board. So when it's their turn to play, and now with your backups and third stringers, it's even more important. Those guys need to be coached the exact same as the first stringer. So you have to do it, again, the process. Do it the same all the time, regardless of the score.
It seems like a tremendous educational technique. Underneath, complete. That should be enough for a first down.
And Mike, here's where it goes one step farther. If you're an offensive coordinator and you're an offensive staff and you've got your eyes in the sky, the guys who sit in the booth, if you make a mistake on defense, they say, oh, when we ran this formation, they misaligned their safety, we can throw the post. Whatever you're seeing in that. Well, if you're correcting that every time you come off in defense and say, hey, remember their post comes off of this, you need to be more to the middle of the field. And talking to Jeremy Pruitt, they make big plays, interception sacks all the time because the offense goes back to something that they have corrected.
Maybe 2 yards from Morris, and let's go to Janine.
Yeah, Mike and Ed, it was last week at Wake Forest when I saw Jeremy Pruitt. It was like every time the defense was on the bench, he was writing on his whiteboard and working and talking every single second. And these are the things that he's going over with them. These are the overlays that the coaches up in the box, they chart every single play. So they keep track of all this, and then they relay via headset down to Jeremy Pruitt. And then they hang these in the locker room at halftime. And defensive tackle Timmy Jernigan said, you know what, it really keeps our attention. He keeps us focused. He keeps us paying attention to the game. He said, Coach Pruitt coaches like his hair's on fire. And then he caught himself and said, wait a minute, he's bald. He goes, you know what I mean?
It was already on fire. That's great.
One of the most entertaining stories, we'll get the call here on this flag.
Timeout, Syracuse. First charge timeout of the half.
Syracuse calls a timeout. One of the interesting things that Jeremy Pruitt said was he came here to interview for the defensive coordinator's job with Jimbo Fisher, not in the hope that he would get the job, but in the hope that it would set him up later as a potential defensive coordinator candidate at Alabama. And then Jimbo offers him the job at the end of the interview and says, I got to go back home and talk about it. As soon as I do that, I'll let you know. And then he took the job. But he didn't think he was going to get this job.
Had no intent. He didn't even want it.
No.
He's from the state of Alabama. His dad's a legendary high school coach in the state, coaching his son at the high school level. But he came here. He met with Jimbo. It's exactly what Fisher wanted. Fisher remembered this match zone scheme from when he coached with Nick Saban at LSU. He said it made me a better offensive coach. I wanted that for my defense. And the one thing Pruitt said when he came in, Jimbo Fisher likes to have fun. The guys were having fun. This was an environment I knew I'd enjoy.
He said there were players who were walking into Jimbo Fisher's office, the coach's office, which is a sanctuary. I mean, you go in there to get tongue lashed most of the time. We're coming in to sit down and watch television in the coach's office. Just hang out. And he said, what a tremendous atmosphere. Then he changed his mind. You know, you offered me that job. I'm going to go home and talk to my son.
Yep.
And if he says,
all good,
we go to Tallahassee, we're going to Tallahassee.
Well, Jimbo, if anything, Jimbo has a lot of skills. He is a salesman. He does know how to close a deal.
Yes, he does. Four-man rush against Drew Allen. Throws underneath and complete up to the 43-44 will be enough for a first down. End of the third quarter. When we come back, we'll tell you about the man who inspired Pete's posts and so many future coaches as well. Bill Peterson. Coach Pete. Bill Peterson made his mark as the FSU head coach from 60 to 70. They called him Coach Pete, but he coached people like Don James, Joe Gibbs, Bill Parcells, Bobby Bowden, other coaches that we don't have the shots of, Dan Henning, Earl Bruce, Bobby Ross, and Kay Stevenson. Guys that most of those guys I got to hang around with during my career. Really enjoyed them. They always had great things to say about Bill Peterson, who had, look at the two receivers he had over here, Fred Biletnikoff and Ron Sellers. I mean, those guys were as good not only in their day, but in any other day as a receiver. And he opened up the passing game in college football in Northwest Florida and put this school on the map.
And you have to remember that during that time, Florida was not what Florida is today. The population has boomed over the last 30 or 40 years, and this was a place that wasn't known for football at all, and Bill Peterson brought a wide open passing attack, was way ahead of his time. And my connection to that, I played under Don James, who of course we lost a few weeks ago, and playing under a guy like Don James and the things that I learned through him, and then I started doing research on Bill Peterson and the impact that he had on guys like Don James, young coaches, and what they went on to do is just unbelievable. You look at the championship coaches that Bill Peterson coached.
Great driving run by Devontae McFarland, just wouldn't go down.
And here is talk about something coming full circle. If you start breaking down the tree, and we'll go down the chart of Washington where I played with Don James. Well, while at Kent State, Don James hired a guy named Nick Saban, who also has gone on to be obviously a pretty good head coach. And if you follow Nick Saban's tree all the way down, that's starting to become very impressive as well. Of course, Will Muschamp and Mark D'Antonio at the college level. But Jimbo Fisher, if you follow that all the way around, comes full circle. He comes to the Nick Saban part of the tree of Bill Peterson, and he also coached under Bobby Bowden. So he's twice under the Bill Peterson tree.
And lest people forget, Jimbo was the offensive coordinator for Nick Saban at LSU when they had such great success there. Let's check into the studio. Robert Flores. Robert?
All right, Mike. Nominee for the AT&T All-America Player of the Week, Ohio State running back Carlos Hyde. A dominant performance in an impressive win for the Buckeyes over Illinois. 246 yards, 4 touchdowns, also caught another one, giving him 5 on the afternoon. To vote, visit ESPNAllamerica.com.
Robert, thank you very much. Seminole fans would like to see the shutout being preserved here, and you know these second team defensive guys who are out there trying to do just that. Bobby Bowden, as part of the honoring the '93 national championship team. He had so many great ball clubs here. Did such a brilliant job recruiting. And that's the first thing he said about Jimbo Fisher. He's done a brilliant job recruiting. And they look like Bowden's teams.
You know, and there was the coach in waiting situation here that has blown up so spectacularly at other places. But even though it was very awkward at the end, it really was awkward.
Sure.
When Bobby Bowden left and Jimbo took over. And talking to Jimbo Fisher, who's very good friends with Will Muschamp, who was a coach in waiting in Texas, they both said it's really about just setting a definitive time that we all agree on and letting it go on. But as awkward as that was, and as uncomfortable as that was, the changing of guard from Bobby Bowden, he's back. He's coming to celebrations. Jimbo has moved on. and they're really starting to improve. So if you look at the whole picture of coach in waiting, it's a disaster most places. It was almost a disaster here.
Yes.
But if you look at this winning percentage and the start that he's had to his career, I would say it's worked out okay.
The winning percentage is the highest ever in the ACC. He's won more games in his first 4 years than any other head coach in the ACC. It's his 7th season here. He was the offensive coordinator under Bobby Bowden. The trouble with the coach in waiting is you don't tell legends when they're going to leave. They decide when they're going to leave. Crowd wants to stop here on 3rd and 2.5. McFarland hitting the backfield. Now it'll be 3rd and 4th and 3.
They're going to need another stop, I think, as DeMonte McAllister slow to get up.
Keelan Smith gets the tackle.
Boy, look at the quickness of McAllister. And he is a backup senior defensive lineman. Niall Lawrence Stample out this week with concussion symptoms from last week's ball game. Every guy who comes in looks like they're as fast as the guy who just left.
Don't they?
It's amazing.
And you know, the truth be known, they probably are. They're just a year younger. And they don't get the playoff in time.
Jeremy Pruitt, the defensive coordinator, probably saw something he didn't like.
Florida State.
And would much rather have the shutout than give Syracuse a chance to pick up that 4th down.
Pac-12 rivals collide tonight on ABC. Tyler Gaffney and the Cardinal of Stanford going to the Coliseum to take on USC after that terrific win against Oregon a week ago. Saturday Night Football presented by Windows tonight at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ABC.
You know, you talk about gold standard programs. USC is one of those places that they only have 1 year left of sanctions where they're 10 scholarships below. But because they undersigned last year, whoever becomes the new coach is going to be able to sign 19 athletes of the 25 that you're normally be able to sign this year. 1 more year of reductions, and then USC is right back in the thick of being in the top 5 in recruiting if they hire the right guy.
Yeah, you can usually get some pretty good guys to go to USC.
In USC, remember when Pete Carroll's there, they'd come get some guys from Florida. They're a national program, but you don't have to leave Southern California to build a championship team.
4th and almost 4. McFarland is the tailback behind Drew Allen. Allen under pressure, out in the flat. And just enough, it appears, for a first down to Chris Clark. Ball seemed to take forever to get there. You can just hear Clark saying, come on, come on.
Yeah, there's Crimson chasing me. Please get me the ball. That ball did float. Good call this time by George McDonald, the offensive coordinator. Ran everybody off. The offensive line for Syracuse really starting to struggle against the backups for Florida State up front.
Please don't say Crimson, it's Garnet.
Excuse me, Garnet.
We'll get letters.
Yeah, I apologize, Garnet. Yeah. Oh, boy, good point. Yeah, I apologize for that.
They'll understand up 59-0.
Yeah. 2 teams are starting to blend together in my mind.
Straight ahead for about 3 yards.
It is really hard to not let your mind wander towards Alabama and Florida State.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and just think about all the intrigue. Jeremy Pruitt comes over, the defensive coordinator, 6 years on the staff at Alabama, 3 in player development, helping develop high school relationships, and then 3 years defensive back coach. And, of course, Jimbo Fisher, as you mentioned, served as the offensive coordinator under Saban at LSU. So
yeah, he made a great hire here.
He really did. But this staff will know how to prepare for Alabama. There's no doubt about that.
Morris cut down. And Alabama knows how to get ready for anybody.
I think Reggie Northrup, I believe he made 3 tackles on kickoff. Every one of them was a big hit. Every time he shows up, it looks like he's trying to break somebody in half. This guy plays with super intensity. And you know, I always go back and watch big hits, make sure heads up, good technique. Every time this guy, even though he's striking as hard as you can strike, his head is up, he's using his shoulder, wrapping with his arms. This guy's pretty impressive.
6'1", 220, and delivers a shock every time. 3rd and long for Allen. Out in the flat again. This time hits his fullback, Cleveland. And Cleveland's got enough for a 1st down.
Nice favorable spot for Cleveland there. Looks like because the official went with the right foot instead of the left foot, looks like he may be right on. Now they're going to call it 4th, just short.
Good job by Allen that time to get the ball out in a hurry.
Well, he was a yard and a half short. They gave him a good spot. Still 4th down.
And Syracuse is going to take a timeout and talk about it. One thing I wanted to bring up.
Don't you think they should have reviewed that last play?
No, I don't think at 59-0. That's when that competitive effect comes into effect. In other words, 59-0. Back in a minute. Florida State 59-0 4th quarter as we continue Dr. Pepper's road to the conference championship. The Seminoles clinched a spot in that championship game a week ago, and they're just rolling on today. 4th down and inches for Syracuse. Trying to keep this drive alive. 15 plays so far. Quarterback keeper will be plenty for the 1st down. This is just for pride, isn't it?
Yep. Well, and it's funny. I was watching Steve Schaefer talking to his kicker, Ryan Norton, before that, thinking maybe we should just get one on the board so we don't go home with 0 on our side of the ledger.
Wake Forest did that last week. And there's some solace in that.
Yeah.
I mean, competitively, 59-3 and 59-0 doesn't make any difference, but it sounds better.
0's a tough one to take for an offensive team.
Allen to the end zone, off the fingertips of his tight end, Kendall Moore. Young man who was so athletic, they recruited him as a tackle. It's what he was in high school. They've turned him into a tight end.
They had what they wanted. Ball thrown on the run just a bit to the outside, and a guy who's just converting from tackle to tight end doesn't quite have the ball skills to go make a play on a not perfectly thrown ball. Could have had just a touch more air on that.
Morris right into the heart of that defensive line, gets maybe 2.
You know, we were talking about Jeremy Pruitt and how much they go over plays during the game and just repeat going through them. The other thing that does is it gives a collective knowledge to your group. So that over the course of a season, you've talked to them about so many things, and you get into a game like, say, the ACC championship game or the national championship game when things are tight, you can refer back and say, remember when we did this adjustment, that adjustment, and that collective knowledge really helps you as you go on in the season.
Blitz coming. Pass overthrown. This is an 18-play drive. They're going to have an awful lot to talk about. They're going to be drawing a lot of stuff on the sideline in between offensive series this time.
Well, the way they actually do it is it's those overlays, the overlay that Janine showed us, those are actually drawn upstairs. So they don't go down. Then they have to relay to Jeremy Pruitt what to draw on his whiteboard.
Exactly.
So those plays are actually drawn at least twice for every play that's run by the offense, the opposing offense.
Ryan Norton, 6 out of 8 in field goal attempts this year. And just squeezed it inside the right upright.
That looked like it might have gone over the right upright. Ball had a little curve to it, started breaking left.
Gotta help it. Come on.
ESPN College Football is presented by 5-Hour Energy. Try the new sour apple flavored extra strength 5-Hour Energy shots in the camouflage bottle.
Campus at Florida State, and any campus that's got Spanish moss on the trees works for me.
I thought that was left over from their Halloween decorations.
Nope. Ryan Norton to kick it away. A squibber. And the Seminoles will take over outside their 35-yard line. It's a timeout, 7:40 left to go in a rout in Tallahassee. Let's take a look at our Pacific Life game summary from Doak Campbell Stadium in Tallahassee. 3 outstanding individual performances. We'll show it to you again in a second. Led by Jameis Winston, who was just absolutely brilliant out of the box. Sean McGuire throwing to Kermit Whitfield, who shocked the defense early in this game. And here is our Pacific Life game summary for this afternoon. Winston, 19 out of 21. That's all. One was dropped. 277, 2 scores, no picks. Williams, only 4 carries, but 78 yards out of it. And Shaw had a big day with 77 or 7 catches for almost 100 yards. Ryan Green, the true freshman, gets a carry. We'll check in with Robert Flores.
All right, Brent, checking in on that game between Duke and Miami on ESPNU. Brandon Connett, another touchdown run. He has 4 on the ground, another through the air, and it's 38-30 Blue Devils in the 4th. Coming up tonight on ABC, David Shaw and Stanford taking on USC, 8 Eastern on ABC, 5 Pacific.
I mean, Duke hasn't been this good since Steve Spurrier coached them,
and with
just remarkable.
At Wake Forest, who is struggling with injuries, lost their best offensive player, Michael Campanera, a few weeks ago, and at UNC. That at UNC game, I think Duke beats. If Duke beats Miami, I think they beat Wake Forest, and if they can go on the road and beat North Carolina, what an unbelievable. We had Duke last year in the bowl game.
Yes,
but they lost a record-setting quarterback. They completely changed their offense. Only 11 out of 22 starters back on offense and defense, and all they're going to do is potentially play for the ACC championship game.
Florida State has had 4 third downs in this game. 4. Well, in a whole game.
The weakness, of course, according to Scott Schaefer, is that 4th and 15 package, though. That's where Florida State really starts to bog down.
Desir on the return, and Richie Desir up to about the 20-yard line. Return of 6 after a punt of 48. Here's Janine.
Here on the return. Philip Dumar makes the tackle.
Mike, you and Ed were talking earlier about the special friendship between Devontae Freeman and Darrell Eskridge, and I'm here with Margaret Eskridge, Darrell's mom. These are 2 boys who grew up together since the age of 12. They've been best buddies. What did Darrell say to you about facing his best friend on the field for this game today?
Well, basically, you know, when I went to visit him at the hotel, he just told me, Mom, I'm going to do what I got to do.
Got to do what I got to do. It's football. Once we're on the field, it's football. And, guys, we mentioned what a special relationship this is because Devontae Freeman and his family actually took Darrell in when Margaret had lost her job. The family hit some hard times, took Darrell in. The 2 were absolutely inseparable. You told me that you have some vivid memories of the 2 of these kids playing in your house. What kind of stuff would go on?
Well, basically, when Vontae come over, you know, they go in the room. I don't hear anything. And then I hear them screaming and hollering, stop, leave me alone, Mom. I'm knocking on the door, stop it. And I open the door, and I see them in there wrestling. They wrestled all the time.
And the one thing he would always yell to his mom is, Mom, get the ref. But Mike and Ed, this is the first game that Margaret has seen her son play this season because she's not able to travel to Syracuse. It's expensive to make the flights up to Syracuse. So today you got to see your son make an interception against a very good Florida State Seminoles team. How do you feel about your son right now?
Well, I feel that both teams is they doing their job, and it's just a game, you know, but I'm just so glad to be here.
You know what, guys, that does put it into perspective, doesn't it? It's just a game.
Absolutely, especially when you're rooting for players one on each side. That's nice. You can't lose in that regard. Charlie Loeb is in as the Syracuse quarterback. Syracuse will take a timeout at the 4:41 mark, and we'll be back to Tallahassee after this. All comes down to one race tomorrow afternoon on ESPN. Jimmy Johnson on the brink of a 6th championship. It's his to lose. He's got to finish at least 23rd. Loeb in at quarterback. Gives to Morris. Morris out to the 27-28 yard line.
Morris on the carry.
One of the things that's always on Jimbo Fisher's mind while he works his football team during the season and the offseason is his youngest son's Ethan's incurable disease. It's called Fanconi anemia. He started the foundation to raise money to do research. It shortens lifespans. There's no cure, but they're working on it, and it's something that is in his mind every day. And his young son very bravely going on as best he can, and as they look for scientific answers to the problem.
It's amazing how a head coach, guy like Jimbo Fisher, has the ability and the time. Of course, his wife does a lot of the work with the foundation, but gives a lot of his time and helps with being a face of the organization, helping raise funds. And he talked to us yesterday at great length about the extension of life expectancies. There are a lot of great things going on in the science, but they don't quite have that cure yet, so still working in that direction.
McFarland will pick up a couple. Let's take a look at today's good hands play, brought to you by Allstate.
Well, it helps when you have a 6'5" receiver with soft hands, and this is Kelvin Benjamin, who, in the words of his head coach Jimbo Fisher, is about to come off the charts. You're not even going to be able to track how good this young man could be, and I don't know. It seems like they just have a lot of guys, as unfortunately for Syracuse, another injured player in a game that's been a lost cause since the first quarter.
Jimbo's got a lot of players who were ready to go off the charts.
I still go back to last year. They had a first-round draft pick quarterback. They had 11 draft picks, the most ever at Florida State. And that's saying something going back to those 90s teams and early 2000s with Bobby Bowden. And they're better. They're much better.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. I think this team would beat last year's team by 21 points. And they lost 11 guys in the NFL.
Jason Emmerich is the injured Syracuse player. Let's check in with Janine.
Yeah, guys, we just wanted to reset the Jameis Winston story that we've been covering since the top of the game. He is part of an investigation into an alleged sexual assault that occurred last December, and according to the state's attorney's office here in Leon County, their investigation could be wrapped up as early as next week. We do know that there are at least 2 witnesses to the incident, and that at least one of those witnesses is a Florida State football player. And just to put it into perspective, if felony charges are filed against Winston, he would be immediately suspended per Florida State policy, which means that their backup quarterback, their now backup, Sean McGuire, who was their 3rd string, but due to the injury to Jacob Coker, Sean McGuire would now be their backup. If Winston was suspended, McGuire would take over. Guys?
All right, Janine, thanks very much.
And, of course, Jameis Winston and Johnny Manziel had jumped out to, of course, when Marcus Mariota had that struggling game against Stanford and was injured. Winston and Manziel jumped to the front of the Heisman race. And as a Heisman voter, and I know Charlie Ward, who's standing there, talked to Janine earlier, these are allegations, and we have to let this play out and see what happens. But I think, as a voter, I think naturally eyes are going to start to go towards Johnny Manziel. I think some voters maybe were holding Johnny Manziel's offseason and saying, wait, I'm not sure if I want to vote for him. Well, now, if Jameis Winston ends up with a very serious off-field allegation, I think people are going to start looking to Manziel. And remember, Manziel now plays in the SEC. His last 2 ball games are at LSU and at Missouri. And so as we get down the stretch here and we let this thing play out with Winston and just find out what the facts are, I don't see how this doesn't start pushing some voters towards Manziel, at least to say, I need to look at it. And what if Manziel plays great against LSU and they win, and plays great against Missouri and they win? I'm not so sure that this story won't have a huge impact on the Heisman race.
Well, certainly we know, or think we know, what Johnny Manziel did off the field. We do not know what Jameis Winston did. We may know within a week or two, which would be a relief to this program and a relief to him if he is cleared.
And as a voter, if he is cleared and there are no charges, I won't factor this in at all. I think you have to go by what the state's attorney says if there should be something filed. But like Janine said, if he is charged with a felony, he's done, and his Heisman chances obviously go down with that.
By the way, Miami is now trailing by 15 to Duke, which would set up a Duke-Florida State ACC championship.
Well, Duke still has to win out.
Yes, they do.
At Wake Forest and at UNC.
But they'd be in control of their
own destiny. Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Yes.
What a fall for Miami. Holy cow.
Good run by McFarland, still on his feet, driving inside the 20. Pac-12 rivals collide tonight on ABC. The number 4 Stanford Cardinal go into the Coliseum to take on the Trojans of USC. Saturday Night Football presented by Windows tonight at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ABC. Jim Harbaugh started the revival of Stanford, and it is continuing. A lot of people thought Stanford would never be back among the elite, considering
false start, 57 offense, 5 yards.
Considering the academic requirements at Stanford and what kind of program did the administration want to have, but Jim Harbaugh changed all that.
And Scott Schaefer was his defensive coordinator.
Yep.
And was his defensive coordinator when they beat a great USC team back in 2007. And Scott Schaefer said that team and what they were able to do really set the stage. And then, of course, Jim Harbaugh and his staff carried it forward. But
didn't have enough nice things to say.
No, and they still keep in touch. And Scott Schaefer, very much like Harbaugh, coach guys hard, but it is about being positive, having a positive environment for your young man. And Schaefer believes in that wholeheartedly.
Loeb, the left-hander, looks over the middle and throws behind his tight end Josh Harris.
You know, we've been talking so much about Florida State and what their future holds. I think Scott Schaefer was a great hire. Doug Marrone left. He'd done such a good job of turning around this program after Greg Robinson was let go. And I think Scott Schaefer, he just has the feel of a head coach. He loves the organizational part of the job. He loves challenging his team mentally. He's got a great outlook. And as tough as today has been in this new league, I think Syracuse is going to do just fine.
Second and long. Morris goes off right tackle, cut down at the 20-yard line. And that'll do it. Florida State dominated this game from the get-go. No touchdowns allowed in the last 10 quarters for this defense, and the offense racks up 59. That's pretty good, isn't it?
The biggest challenge for Jimbo Fisher is going to be that focus.
Good luck the rest of you. Go win this thing.
And he is the guy. That's what he talks about all the time. You only control the things you can control. You eliminate the rest. It's easy to say. It's very hard to do. He's managed to do it. Let's go to Janine.
Coach, congratulations. Another record-setting, spectacular performance by your team. Because of the news that you guys had to deal with this week, how do you feel about the way your guys responded and performed today?
Well, I mean, I'm just proud of our kids that we were able to control the things we could control and played, and you know, that's out of their hands. That's nothing they can, you know, and as a team, they bonded together and played very well.
Jameis Winston, we forget how young he is. He's a redshirt freshman. How do you feel he handled his job today, dealing with everything that's going on around him?
I thought he played exceptionally well. I think he was 19 or 21, but he made the right decisions, got us in the right plays, and just his mind was really in the game, and he played very sharp mentally and then made the plays physical.
You told me yesterday that part of your pregame speech today was going to be asking your team, how good do you want to be? Challenging yourself. Yeah. Have we seen the best out of the Seminoles yet, do you think?
I still think we still got some things we got to clean up and play, and I hope we continue to grow. I hope not. You never arrive. We have to continue to grow and get better and keep playing better and better each week, and I think we can.
If you guys can get better, it's going to be scary. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, our final score, Florida State at home on homecoming, 59-3 over Syracuse. Now we'll send you back to the studio.